What's up, everyone? This is Brandan Schieppati from Bleeding Through, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour, your source for all hard rock, heavy metal, new metal, alternative, punk, horror punk, hardcore, rock, and all local bands, with your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bodfather.
Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I'm your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bodfather, and as always, I bring you guys awesome interviews. Today is an honor and privilege to have Mr. Brandan Schieppati, vocalist of the band Bleeding Through. New album, Love Will Kill All, is out May 25th, released via SharpTone Records. And we're going to be talking to him about that new album coming out. So, Brandan, how's it going, man?
It's going well, man. Just getting through my Thursday and just cruising along.
And today's my Friday, actually, for my actual job.
That's awesome.
It's good. Glad to have you on here, man.
Thank you, man. No worries. It's good to be on here.
How good does it feel to be back with the band Bleeding Through since the band took a hiatus in 2014? Was it just time to recharge the batteries and go down another path at that time? Or let's talk about that a little bit if you don't care.
It's a little bit of a bunch of stuff. I mean, it's not the popular answer, but because bands don't ever want to talk about, finances and the business of the band. And the reason why they don't, and the fact that they don't talk about it more, lets, the music industry kind of control that dynamic when it comes to, the music. And I know it's like I said, it's not the popular thing to, talk about it, but it needs to be talked about. And we were a band for 15 years. And once you're a band for 15 years, it really becomes your full-time job and your solo, a lot of us for our solo means of income. And really, it was just a time for us we needed to focus on other things in our life on the personal side. I mean, we were getting to our mid-30s, and it was the sort of thing where people wanted to start having kids and start families and pursue other careers that they've never been able to pursue before because there's always been obligations to Bleeding Through. And I think that for us, it was really important to do those things. I find that when you look at a lot of bands, the older they get, they don't do those things. And outside of music, their life is a fucking mess.
Yeah.
And I've seen it firsthand. We saw it firsthand with hundreds of people in bands where their lives were just a fucking mess. And we never really wanted to be like that. And so it was sort of the responsible thing, the more grown-up thing for us to do is take that time off and pursue other things. Like I know for me, I opened my first gym, Rise Above Fitness, in 2011. And it kind of came to a point where I realized I need to focus on this if it's going to happen. I mean, screaming into a microphone isn't going to pay the bills forever, nor did it really comfortably pay the bills ever. And in that sort of thing where people are going to be like, oh, well, fuck you, you guys do it for the money. Well, it's easy to say that when you're not in a band and you're at a position that we are, where we literally tour and do so much that we can't do other things. It is about a little bit about money, because when that is your sole income and you're trying to support yourself and a kid and a wife or whatever, pay a mortgage, that's the long and the short of it. That's reality there. And I think that the music industry is so fantastical all the time where they don't dwell in the reality of checks and balances. And they should, because it's irresponsible for labels and management and booking agents to go out there and tell bands to do a certain thing when you know damn well it's the wrong thing on a personal level for every single person in that band. It's irresponsible, because at the end of the day, they make the money regardless. And for us, that's how we were beginning to think and feel about ourselves. We felt that the people that were working for us, label-wise, management-wise, booking agent-wise, we were a cash cow. And they would just keep whipping the dead horse and go out there and play and go do more and grind yourself down and don't worry about your personal lives. Like, it's all about this music and blah, blah, and all the whole fucking shebang rhetoric that everybody gets fucking fed when it comes to underground music and this and that. They didn't care how we did and how we were doing, because they were making their 15 to 25%. That's all that matters. So for us, it was like, fuck these people. We need to take care of our lives, because our lives are beginning to kind of be a mess, and we refuse to be like that. And we also don't want to be one of those bands that has so many daily stresses that get in the way of the creation of the music and the importance of the creation of music and us being around each other and being friends and touring and playing music, because that's number one. It's just our creation with each other is the reason why we do it. So we just felt that it was a time where we had to just shut it down in order to kind of regroup, refocus. And then it was as easy as like me being in the studio with my producer, and I was writing some stuff for some other bands, and I wrote a song for Bleeding Through. I could kind of sound like a Bleeding Through song, so I recorded it and sent a video of it to a group text of everybody in the band. And I said, do you guys want to do this again? And everybody said, yep, let's do it. And I said, you know, if you guys don't want to do it, if you're perfectly satisfied just being away from it, then that's fine. But if you want to do it, let's do it. And everybody said, all right, it's time to do it. So I guess that close to 5-year kind of hiatus was enough for us to get our affairs in order on a personal level, which I think is important.
That was going to be my next question about how did the band, you know, come back together, what led to it. What was everybody's reaction of wanting to come back to Bleeding Through and kicking something else off with this again?
Everybody was pretty, you know, ready. I feel like it was kind of like an overwhelming, like, yes, let's do it. I think we just all missed kind of playing music with each other. And that's really what it's all about to us. And I think that everybody felt fulfilled with kind of, you know, letting the time away kind of wash away the old regime of things that had to do with Bleeding Through, which kind of left like a stigma. I feel that we were kind of viewed as a fucking dinosaur, which is fine. It's because we kind of were a dinosaur. When you're around that long, you're a dinosaur. And, you know, it's just, but I, even though we were an older band, I felt that the people that were supposed to be taking care of this band and making sure that we still thrived and into our later years were not doing a good job. And they weren't adding enthusiasm and excitement. I mean, we were a band that still toured and still drew a fucking great crowd and packed out venues and sold out venues. But people still just expected us and waited for us to fall. And it was like this anticipation, like, oh, maybe this is the tour where they fail. Maybe this is the tour that they fail. Like, it's like, instead of how about thinking, fuck yeah, this was a good tour, let's fucking expand on that. Or this is a good record, let's expand on that. It was a lot of like tiptoeing around and a lot of like non-confident people working for my band. And we didn't like that. We got over that. And it's the sort of thing where I've had a bone to pick with the music industry for a long time, just because now that I'm in the business, in more of a business state of mind with my gym and other aspects of business, I understand the checks and balances. So the wool's been pulled over bands' eyes for years. And I know so many bands that are around right now that as soon as they were a band, they had management, so they never even had to make a decision for themselves. And they're out there killing it, and you'd think that they're well off or they could support themselves, and they can't. They have to come home and work other jobs, because the more they tour, the more everyone else just gets paid and they don't. And like I said, it's not a popular discussion when a band talks about money, because I think that fans think that bands just do it for the love of it, and that's it. But the thing is, if you want to keep seeing your favorite band play, you got to understand that money goes into it. Mm-hmm. Money makes this world go around. It's the fucking truth of it all. Mm-hmm. But I think that the music industry has just been abusing bands for years. And it's time for bands to kind of take that step and say, you know what, fuck it. We're going to do what we want to do and what our fan base wants to do. And let's connect directly with the fans. And yes, now we are on a label, and I decided to put this on a label, and I decided to get management again, but I was very skeptical and very picky, and we all were. And we feel like we have a really good team that understands our vibe.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, dude, I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of people think that. A lot of people think that, oh God, they're in a big name band, you know, and all this, they're making millions and all this stuff. No, it don't happen like it used to back in the 80s and 70s and stuff like that now. Municipal Waste, if I'm not mistaken, the lead singer from Municipal Waste, don't he have a daytime job too now? If I'm not mistaken?
I'm sure a lot of people do. And even when I was in the heat of Bleeding Through, I still tried to do things like on the side. And that's how I got into training is I needed income, because what was going on wasn't paying the bills. And the more, you know, I thought the more we toured, the more money we should make. But on the contrary, and we were getting pushed to do that. But on the contrary, every time we toured, there was more expenses that needed to go into it. And it became harder and harder, more expensive to tour. And I see a lot of these bands that are slaving away on the road. And then I talk to them and I'm like, you know, you guys making some decent money, being able to take care of yourself. And they're like, oh no, we didn't really make anything. It's like, how the fuck did you not make anything? Like, how? Well, we have a crew, like our manager is telling us we need more stage production, which costs money, a tech for everybody in the band, which costs money, a tour bus, which costs money. It's all of that things that managers are like, we got to fake it till we make it with this band. Because they don't fucking care. They're making a fucking percentage anyway. If they can get a hefty percentage off you for 3 years and then you're gone, they'll find another one of you guys. And that's why I'm saying, like, bands need to really focus on looking at the expenses of their band and looking at how their band is run and start running their band like a business. If they want to do this as a career, it needs to be run like a business.
Yeah, I mean, since you mentioned it that way, I could see why Slayer and the rest of them portray their band as a business. You know, I could see that now. What's impressed you the most about making this new album? What's impressed you the most about it? What's caught your eye about, if anything, man?
I mean, really, for us, I feel like the thing that impressed me about it, us getting together, is just kind of how it didn't really feel like we lost a stride, where I feel like a lot of bands that kind of get back together sound like they haven't played for like fucking 10 years and they're just kind of like trying to make it work again.
Yeah.
I was just kind of like, I was really excited just how kind of tuned in we were to like our kind of what we were, and how it felt like we were just basically picking up where we left off on the last record. I didn't feel like there was any like kind of like writer's block or anything like that went on in the studio. I think we kind of knew what we needed to do and what we kind of wanted to go for, and it was all about just executing that goal.
How long did it take you guys to record the album?
Well, if we would have recorded it straight, it probably would have took us about 3 weeks, but it actually took it about 6 months. And the reason why it took 6 months is because the studio that we recorded in is a friend of mine's studio, and the producer is like one of my best friends. And we kind of had a deal where, because of like the sort of way that everybody in the band is now, to where we, work full-time jobs and all that kind of stuff like that, have careers and stuff, it's really hard for us to bury ourselves in the studio for a long period of time. So for us, it was like, some weeks we would do about, I would go in about twice for a couple hours and do some vocals and guitars. And then some weeks we wouldn't have any studio time, and we would just take a couple weeks off. And then there'd be a week where we were in there, about 5 hours a day and did a little bit more. So it was all kind of scattered, and it was kind of cool because we got to take time away from it and like listen and really like focus on things. And I think sometimes when you hear something, you interpret it a certain way, and then a couple weeks later you listen to it again, you're like, okay, I totally hear this different now. And I think that was a luxury that we had towards it, and kind of worked to our advantage.
Now, you mentioned that your friend produced this album. Who produced this album for you guys?
Mick Kinney, and he produced our last record as well. He's also done like work with like Motionless in White and a lot of other bands. But I met him because we started a side project together called Supperwell back in 2009, I believe. And then we've just been pretty much best friends since then. And when it comes to like music and stuff, like we just get each other. That's just like totally what it is. And it's like a comfort level type deal. And it's cool. It's cool to work with people like that because, it's a very like the whole thing, I just wanted to be stress free. And I didn't really want to work with anybody that was going to be like, try to take our songs and turn them into something they weren't, because they felt they had to write like a radio song. And I feel like a lot of times with producers, they're always trying to get that, let's write that song that could possibly make it to radio. And that's just kind of stupid. Like, listen to the radio. You're going to hear Foo Fighters. You're going to hear Nirvana still. You're going to hear Red Hot Chili Peppers. You're probably in new bands. You're going to hear Shinedown and Five Finger Death Punch and Papa Roach, and that's it. You don't hear bands like Bleeding Through on the fucking radio. So that's why I always thought it was comical when like we would talk to producers, and they'd be like, well, we just feel like we could take these songs and like get them on the radio. I'm like, what fucking radio? Yeah. Satellite radio? We can do that already. We don't need your fucking producing mind to do that. So with Mick, it was just sort of like, he knows what we want to do, and it was all about just, taking things and him getting excited and saying, this is great. Let's try a different sound here and let's see if it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't.
And plus, man, it's always good to work with somebody that you're familiar with, because he knows your limits on how they could push you and how far they can push you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a plus. Definitely a plus.
Any songs off the album that stand out more to you than any on it as of right now, possibly? I mean, I know these are like picking your favorite kids or collectible, but I know it changes from day to day. But do you have any favorites, maybe?
Yeah, Fade Into the Ash is my favorite on the record. I think it's my favorite because I feel like if you listen to that song, I feel like it tells the story of Bleeding Through's 15-year career. I feel like it just is. It encapsulates like the whole story of our band in one song. And I think that song's like, when I listen to it, that's the one song that just gives me like goosebumps.
Has the hiatus allowed you guys to grow more as musicians since forming back, and has it just been more of a personal growth for each of you guys?
I think it helped us grow. I think what it did, the older you get, the less shit you give about stuff. You know what I mean? And you're not really trying to impress anybody. You're just kind of trying to grow within yourself. And I think that makes you a better musician. And I think that's what really happened to us, is we kind of just, we were good with what we were and what we are. And we weren't trying to really impress anybody with it. And I think that's something that happened. I think that we just, as we grew older, we kind of just settled into what we did well. So I don't know if we became better musicians, but we just settled into being like more confident musicians. I guess if that makes any sense. I think that like a confident musician, like for me, I can't shred. Like I'm not like fucking one of the dudes in Periphery, but I could write some fucking riffs and I could write some fucking songs. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like, and I think part of that has to just do with confidence in songwriting. And that's what I think we was a positive for us.
Do you do anything differently during the writing and recording process, Brandan, to help keep your mind fresh and open to not let the music get stale or bring something new to an album?
What I do is I write lyrics. Like when I write lyrics, I basically listen to a song, right? So I almost go backwards, where a lot of people will write lyrics first and then do the music to it. For me, I like to hear the music. I like to see what kind of vibe it leaves me. And then I try to write it as I'm listening to it, and I try to take about 30 minutes. And if it takes me longer than 30 minutes, I typically just throw the piece of paper away and don't use it. So I try to go with something that like flows just out of me like organically.
What can fans expect at a show from Bleeding Through who have not got to see you guys as of yet?
Well, I think one thing that made us stand out amongst a lot of the other bands is just I felt like we were a really good live band. Like we put on a really good show. I just think it's solid. I think we add some drama to the stage, and you know, I feel like our performance, like I said, like almost like the song, I feel like our performance tells the story of what we've gone through for the last 20 years.
Do you like the digital era of recording albums and plus social media that we're in right now to get, you know, your stuff out there a lot quicker, and with the social media deal, you can get out to fans more easier and things like that? Do you like this now compared to when you guys were doing your thing?
So basically, I'm conflicted with it. I accept it. I'm not one of these people that's going to be like non-accepting to like the new ways of recording music. That's the way it is, and you got to kind of go with the times and ride that wave, or you're going to be forgotten about, and you're just going to be bitter and old and grumpy and just whatnot. But I will say this, and one of the things that I do struggle with when people ask me about new music is that everything sounds the fucking same. Everything. Like a band could sound different live, and then all of a sudden you put both of their records on and the band sounds exactly the same. And it's just about like every guitar tone is the same. All the drums are the same. The production levels are the same. Everything is exactly the same. And everybody just copies each other's formulas. And it's cool because like sometimes you get some cool sounding records, but they're not raw anymore. And then bands wonder why people don't go to shows anymore. And it's because like, fuck man, you also can't play the songs live and you sound nothing like you do on your record. And I always thought that was a bad thing if a band couldn't sound how they did on the record. And back in the day, and I hate to be like the back in the day guy, but back in the day, you used to have to win people over live to have them buy your CD. Now it's listen to my CD and maybe go see us live. It was just different back then. And I think bands back then had to learn how to play. And I think that it's a bad thing. This is going to be the best podcast ever. I hope you don't edit any of it. It's going to be the best. It's sort of thing where it's like, I just get disappointed when I see these bands play and they don't feel like they have to perform. It's just stale. Everything's stale, copied, and the same. To me, everything sounds like a Muir with a Day to Remember choruses. Everything. That's how everything sounds like to me. And I'm talking about stylistically and the way that both of those records sound. And it's just like, it's insane. Like you were talking about Winston from Parkway. I'm just glad that they decided to not try to sound like everybody else now. That's what I'm glad. And I actually like their last couple records. And I'm not the biggest fan of their older stuff. I mean, they were a good band, but I wouldn't put those records on and jam them. But these new ones are just, to me, higher, and the new one that's coming out is fucking awesome. Mm-hmm. But that's on a different subject. I wish these bands would just put more effort into it. And I wish that they would want to go out there and make raw sounding recorded records and not have to be like so concerned. Oh, does this sound like a Will Putney record? I don't know. Well, let's fuck some things up and see if we can get it to sound like that, because this band sounds like that and they are huge and they sell this amount of records. And if we have that sound, then we can accomplish that. And truly I feel like it has less and less to do with the way your record actually sounds. Bands talk trash and they go, I don't get it. No one goes to our shows, but people are buying Code Orange records and they're going to go see Code Orange. And my response to that is because Code Orange actually has fucking raw and real sounding recordings. And when you go see them play, they go fucking ape shit. Mm-hmm. That's why they're a big band. And you were talking about like Municipal Waste, same thing. They had their own sounding record and they fucking put on a great performance live, and I think that's just being a little bit lost. And with the digital age of social media, it's just one of those cool, what's next, cool, what's next, cool, what's next. And so it's forcing these bands to have to try to reinvent themselves all the time to try to keep people's attention rather than just sticking to the way they are.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it's rushed. It's rushed too fast and just...
Yeah.
If it takes you 4 or 5 months to put out a damn album, then yeah, take that time. It could be one of the best ones out there.
Well, to me, it's like this, like immediately, like the band's played one show, but they have a good following, they get signed to a label, and their first tour is like a big tour. It's like, dude, that never used to happen. And now that's just like commonplace. Yeah. If bands just pop out too fast, and then all of a sudden they just fade away if they don't make it, or if they don't feel like they make it quick enough. And even managers are giving up on bands too fast. They're not giving them time to like try to make it happen. They're just like saying, okay, well, if they can't, we're giving them this and that's about it.
Brandan, support wise, is there a country or a location that stands out more or surprises you? You guys get support from that location?
I've always been really surprised with our overwhelming support in Australia. It's been awesome. It's been consistent for our whole band's career. And, we can't wait to get over there again and play for them. And other than that, Mexico was really good for us. That's a great place as well.
I love the foreign countries with music, and I'm not knocking the U.S. or anything like that. I just feel like they get it more musically over there for bands.
They support it, and I think it's because it's just more part of their culture. It's one of those things where European countries, a lot of European countries, they still pay a premium, and like when it's summertime, they're always outdoors, and they're going to like festivals, and they're going to like, they're just doing things. It's just more active sort of like a vibe. Here it's just everybody sits in front of their fucking phones all day.
That's very true. It's very, very true.
And so and people in the States, they'd rather just sit in front of their phone and stream a show live or watch videos on YouTube of a show and not actually be there.
My actual job is technical support for internet and TV. And when we have outages, with internet stuff, you think the world has stopped and apocalypse has started.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny, I think. So what made you want to become a musician? What was that spark for you that said, yeah, that's what I want to do?
Oh, man. The thing that made me want to play music, the record, was Pantera's Vulgar Display of Power.
Nice.
Nice. That was the one that's the record that was like, I want to get on stage and do that. Fuck, man. But what's funny is I actually wanted to play bass. I didn't even want to sing. That's really the record that did that.
Any show or a moment that you can recall that sticks out to you being part of Bleeding Through, possibly a big show that you couldn't believe that you was part of, possibly?
The very first time we sold out a venue in Southern California called the Glass House is a rather bigger place for us. And I just remember the show going fucking crazy. And I just remember finally, I remember being on the stage and actually just being like, man, this feels fucking good. And that was a really good moment for us.
Folks, Bleeding Through's new album, Love Will Kill All, is out May 25th via SharpTone Records. This is Bleeding Through's first album since 2014. So you want to check this album out, give this band some really good, cool support. Brandan, how can folks get in touch with you guys, buy some merchandise, this album, tour dates? How can they do that, my friend?
You can go check us out at our Instagram, which is @BleedingThrough, or you can go to our website, bleedingthroughofficial.com, for all your needs of purchasing things and finding out about shows and just finding out about news about us.
Before I let you go, good sir, would you care to do a promo for the show?
Not at all, man. Good. What's up, everyone? This is Brandan Schieppati from Bleeding Through, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Everybody stick around. We got some great music coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour and BODS Mayhem Radio Network. Thanks, Brandan.
Thank you, man.
I apologize about the fire alarm.
Oh, it's good. Don't worry. Don't even trip, man. It's all good. Thanks for the interview. I appreciate it.
All right, see you, man.
Take care.